Summary of Dear Martin by Nic Stone. One night, Justice McAllister, who is 17 years old, walks through a rich neighborhood outside of Atlanta, Georgia. He is wearing a hooded jacket and going to look for Mello, the girl he used to date. He knows that Mello is drunk and wants to make sure she doesn't drive, but when he finds her, she tells him to leave. Still, he takes her keys and gets her into the back seat. Then, a police car pulls up, and a white cop named Tommy Castillo jumps out and grabs Justice, putting him in handcuffs and slamming his head against the car. Justice tries to explain that he was only trying to help Mello, but Castillo hits him in the face and tells him not to say shit, calling him a punk ass who couldn't resist the pretty white girl who'd locked her keys in her car. Nic Stone shows the readers a page from Justice's diary as a transition from the scene of his arrest. In it, Justice writes a letter to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., saying that he admires the way Dr. King lives his life. Justice tells Dr. King that he is a scholarship student at Brusselton Preparatory Academy, is fourth in his class, is captain of the debate team, has good test scores, and thinks he has a bright future despite growing up in a bad area. Unfortunately, none of that mattered the night before, when Officer Castillo nabbed him. Justice was fired in the end, but he's upset because he never thought he'd be in this kind of situation. In his notebook, he talks about a young black boy named Shamar Carson who was shot by a white police officer in Nevada even though he was unarmed. Justice goes back to school the week after that. A grand jury recently decided not to charge the officer who killed Shamar Carson, and Justice can't stop thinking about how his own run-in with the police could have easily ended in death, just like Shamar's. Justice also finds out that his best friend Manny's cousin, Quan Banks, killed Officer Castillo the other night and is now in juvenile jail while he waits for his trial. Doc, Justice's favorite teacher, asks the class in his societal evolution class if they think the United States has reached race equality. Doc, Justice, and Manny are the only black people in the room. Manny is also good friends with a white boy named Jared, who is too sure of himself. In response to Doc's question, Jared says that the United States has gained racial equality and that people who complain about racism are just being divisive. Sarah Jane, or SJ, is a white girl who is Justice's debating partner. She disagrees with this statement and tries to show Jared that he only thinks racism is over because he has never been racist. This point is argued against by Jared, but SJ says that ignoring injustice won't make it go away. Justice hears Jared and Manny talking about their white friends Blake, Tyler, and Kyle after class. Jared is angry that Doc would even say that there is still inequality between races. He then talks about how he and his friends live in a colorblind society, and even though Manny is hesitant to agree, the four white boys convince him to chant equality with them. Justice is angry when she hears this, and she doesn't like how Manny agrees with Jared's casual racism. Later, Jared suggests that he and his friends dress up for Halloween as different types of people. Even though Justice isn't sure about the idea, he agrees to go along with it and dress like a thug while Manny dresses as the token black guy. Jared dresses himself up as a yuppie/politician. But what really bothers Justice is that Blake wears an outfit that looks like it came from the Ku Klux Klan. Justice doesn't say anything because he doesn't want the others to call him too sensitive, so the group heads to a party. But when they run into a group of guys from Justice's neighborhood, they run into danger. These young men are in a gang called the Black Jihad. They don't like Blake's racist outfit, so they hit him in the face right away. When Trey, a member of the gang, sees Justice, he makes fun of him for leaving the neighborhood to hang out with people like Blake. Justice talks to SJ over the phone after the Halloween party. They've always been close friends, but recently he started to feel more strongly about her. He doesn't know what to do with these feelings, though, because his relationship with Mello is on and off. He also knows that his mother would never let him go out with a white girl. Still, he feels better when he talks to her, especially since she seems to be one of the few people at Brusselton Prep who is ready to notice the subtle but important racism going on around him. When he finds out a few days after Halloween that Yale has accepted him during the early action time, he calls her right away. In Societal Evolution, Jared is very angry the day after Justice gets into Yale. He raises his hand and asks Doc if they can talk about affirmative action, arguing that such practices discriminate against members of the majority. He then says that Justice only got into Yale because he is black, and he points out that he himself was delayed during early action even though he had better test scores. When Justice asks Jared how he knows he did better, it's clear that Jared just assumed this, so the two boys compare their numbers and find that they did about the same. Frustrated, Jared says that Justice only got into Yale because the school has a quota of black kids that it has to fill. In the next few weeks, Justice will spend most of his time with SJ and work on the upcoming debate contest. When Manny tries to get him to date SJ, he says his mother wouldn't be happy about it. But when he and SJ win the tournament, he can't keep his thoughts to himself any longer. Backstage, he leans in to kiss her, but she pulls back and walks away. She avoids him for the rest of the day and the weeks that follow. During this time, a white police officer shoots and kills yet another helpless black teenager. Justice is very upset, so much so that he drinks a lot on the way to a party that night at Blake's house. Manny tells him to slow down, but he doesn't pay attention. When they get to the party, Justice sees that Blake's family has decorations with minstrels and other things that are racist. Even worse, Blake goes up to Manny and Justice and says racist things to them. When Justice asks him about it, he acts like it's not important. At this point, Jared walks in and jokes with Blake that he should be careful because Justice is from the hood. When Justice hears this, he hits him and starts a fight, pulling Manny into it. When Manny tells him he started a fight, he and Justice get into an argument about how Justice always lets his white friends off the hook. After a few days, Manny and Jared are both missing from school for no clear reason. When Justice goes back to his dorm room, he sees Manny there, and the two boys make up. Then Manny tells him that he went to quit the basketball team the other day because he has never really liked basketball. He says he was only on the team because he thought everyone would expect him to play because he is the tall black kid at school. When he went to the coach's office, Jared was there, and he made a joke about how Manny wouldn't quit until Massa set him free. When Manny got mad, he hit him. The next weekend, on Saturday, Manny picks up Justice from school so they can go camping. But Manny is in a bad mood because he just found out that Jared's family is suing him for hitting Jared. So, he doesn't want to go camping. Instead, he and his friend just listen to hip-hop while driving around in Manny's Range Rover. At a red light, Justice sees an angry white man in the car next to them staring at them. Justice turns down the music because he is nervous, but when the light changes, Manny turns it back up. At the next stop, the man pulls up next to them and tells them to turn down the music. Instead, Manny turns it up, which makes the man call them the N-word. "Hey, fuck you, man," Manny yells, and the man pulls out a gun and shoots into the house, killing Manny and hurting Justice. The shooter's name turns out to be Garrett Tyson, and he is an off-duty police officer. After Manny's funeral, his parents call Justice to their house and tell him that their nephew Quan, who killed Officer Castillo, wants to see him. Justice and Quan grew up in the same neighborhood, so Justice agrees to hang out with him. When he comes to visit, Quan tells him that Officer Castillo's partner was Garrett Tyson. He also tells Justice to join the Black Jihad so that Martel, the group's boss, can help him. He tells him, "You need to get a crew to roll with," and gives him Justice Martel's number. Justice tries to forget about calling Martel over the next few days. But SJ is still avoiding him, and he has no one else to talk to, so he takes the bus to Martel's house and meets with members of the Black Jihad before listening to Martel talk about how bad things are for black people in the United States. Everything Martel says makes sense, but when Justice sees a sawed-off shotgun, he remembers that joining the Black Jihad would mean living a violent life. At this time, other members of the gang run in and show Justice a video clip of Blake talking about him on the news. Blake has apparently come forward to tell the whole country that Justice attacked him at his party. This calls Justice's moral character into question and adds fuel to the conversation that is already going on in all media about whether or not Justice and Manny did something to make Officer Tyson angry. Justice runs away from Martel's house quickly and goes straight to SJ's. Once they are alone in her room, he tells her that he almost joined a gang, and she lets him cry on her shoulder. He finally tells her that he likes her romantically, and she tells him that she feels the same way. It's been a long time since he felt happy or hopeful. The media, meanwhile, keeps making crazy assumptions about Justice and Manny and calling them thugs. Around this time, members of the Black Jihad burn down Garrett Tyson's house. Several of them say that Justice helped them do it, but police don't believe them. Shortly after that, Justice has to go to court and speak against Tyson. Tyson's lawyer makes him feel bad by bringing up the fact that he got drunk at Blake's party and hit Jared and Blake. She also says that Justice met with the Black Jihad, which is a very bad thing to say about Justice and makes her look very bad. So, Tyson is only found guilty of 3 of the 4 charges against him. The most serious, which is a charge of criminal murder, is not one of them. A group of prisoners kill Tyson in jail a few days after the trial, though. Later that month, Justice starts at Yale. He is upset that he is put with a housemate who is pretentious and has hints of racism. He is still seeing SJ, even though SJ now goes to Columbia. Justice goes to Yale, too, but he never sees Jared there. But when he goes back home for Christmas, he meets Jared at Manny's grave, and the 2 boys make up. Jared tells Justice how much he misses Manny and how he wants to become a civil rights lawyer. This makes Justice happy and proud, so he turns to his old enemy and suggests they hang out back at Yale.
About the author. Nic Stone grew up in an Atlanta neighborhood in Georgia in the year 1985. She went to Spelman College and got a psychology degree there. When she was 23, she had what she called an identity crisis and went to Israel, where she met soldiers, militants, refugees, and families from both the Palestinian and Israeli cultures. During this trip, she decided she wanted to be a writer because the stories she heard were so interesting. So, she started writing fiction for young adults, especially stories about identity and belonging, which were hard for her as one of the only African American girls in the advanced programs at her high school. Dear Martin, her first book, came out in 2017 and quickly became a New York Times bestseller. In the 2 years after that, she released Odd One Out and Jackpot, and she has kept putting out essays and short stories since then.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.